Hello friends. So, the fight we've been talking about has finally happened, and now it's much harder to speak about Moses Itauma as just a talented prospect. Because in Manchester, he didn't just beat Jermaine Franklin, he did it in a way that raised far fewer questions and, at the same time, sparked a lot more conversation around him. Briefly about the fight, from the very first seconds, Itauma did what we've come to expect from him: heavy pressure, constant forward movement, fighting as the aggressor, and imposing his rhythm. From the opening, Franklin clearly wasn't planning to rely on volume or mobility. It looked like his strategy was to counter and catch Moses on mistakes, but the problem was, he simply couldn't keep up with him. Already in the first round, Jermaine was shaken just seconds before the bell, although he did survive the early onslaught. In the second round, it became even clearer how Itauma was breaking him down. He used his jab very effectively, constantly mixing levels. He landed a solid 1-2, followed by an uppercut. At the same time, Franklin held up well, and that's important to note, because for the first time since 2023, Moses spent more than a couple of minutes in the ring. This wasn't just another quick blowout where everything ends before the opponent shows anything. We actually got to see a few extra minutes and how Itauma would adjust. In that sense, the third round was very telling. Moses was feinting, pulling his opponent apart, and at one moment dropped him beautifully with a right overhand. But Franklin got back up and continued. Moreover, the underdog even started to pick up some activity and had his first successful moment. He read the timing, caught Itauma while he was breaking distance. Nothing too dangerous, but the fact that he tried to get into the fight mattered. At that point, the fight became more interesting, because Itauma wasn't just rushing blindly for a quick finish, he realized this wasn't a guy who would fall from the first clean shot. Fabio Wardley later pointed this out as well. He said we saw what we already knew, but also saw that Moses can do it in later rounds against a higher-level opponent, someone who didn't just fall apart immediately. According to Wardley, that's exactly what Itauma needs: gradual experience and different ways to win. He even suggested that Itauma deliberately slowed down after realizing Franklin wouldn't go down in the first round. But back to the fight, in the fifth round came the moment where there was nothing left to say. First, Franklin got a bit lucky when Itauma countered his counterattack but missed slightly high, and then, in the very next exchange, he brutally knocked him out with a vicious uppercut. Very clean, very sharp. The result, Itauma wins by knockout in the fifth round, and this is the first stoppage loss of Jermaine Franklin's career. That's a serious statement. As for Moses himself, he was quite composed after the fight, without any unnecessary bravado. Right in the ring, he said, "Oh, I don't even know what to say. God is great, right?" He admitted that he initially tried to knock Franklin out in the first 2 rounds, but then realized it might not be that kind of night and returned to the basics. He started working the body, and the knockout came naturally. Another important point, when he first turned pro, he believed he could win titles, but didn't expect it to happen this quickly. That matters, he's not pretending he always knew everything. Even he is somewhat surprised by how fast he's approaching big fights. In another quote, he said it more simply: "I'm happy with the win. I should thank Franklin for the opportunity. It takes 2 to fight, and I appreciate that. I'm just a young guy chasing my dream." After the fight, he also said, "I wanted a fight with Hrgovic, but he's now fighting Dave Allen. So we'll have to go back to discussions and find a new opponent." As for Franklin, he spoke honestly as well. He said he feels he slightly drifted away from the game plan his coach gave him. Then he took a shot, went down, thought he could get back up, but the referee stopped the fight. And then a very telling line: "There's no limit to perfection. I never quit, so I'll start from scratch." And as usual after such a victory, reactions started pouring in from all sides. The first to speak, of course, was Frank Warren. He called it an outstanding performance and specifically that Itauma did something to Franklin that no one had done before, not White, not Joshua, not anyone else. According to Warren, Jermaine has a great chin and has taken very powerful shots in the past. That's exactly why he also praised Itauma's patience. He didn't rush, worked methodically, broke Franklin down, and when the moment came to land clean, those final rounds were simply phenomenal. Warren also outlined the plans. According to him, Moses' next fight will take place in July, and it will be a very big one. He added that Itauma is currently ranked number 1 in both the WBO and WBA. A lot is expected to happen in the heavyweight division in the coming months, and they will definitely come up with something. Most importantly, the promoter is confident that Itauma will fight for a world title before the end of the year. He even linked this to Alexander Usyk's situation. Usyk has a fight scheduled in Egypt, and then is expected to make a mandatory WBC defense against Ajit Cabale. Otherwise, he could be stripped of his belts. After that, other organizations may step in, and in that turbulence, an opportunity could open up for Itauma. And here comes the most interesting question: who will be next for Itauma? There are actually many options, each intriguing in its own way. The most obvious one right now is probably Murat Gassiev. Why? Because Itauma is already the official contender for the WBA regular title, which Gassiev holds. Plus, WBO President Gustavo Olivieri is reportedly interested in making him a mandatory challenger on their side as well. As for other options, a fight with the current champion Fabio Wardley is basically impossible since they are on the same team and are friends. If the belt goes to Daniel Dubois, it's also unclear whether Frank Warren would want to match them immediately, as both are signed with him. Besides, that fight would be very tough, and the winner would likely need time to recover, possibly returning only in October or November. And Itauma has no reason to wait that long. There are other possibilities too. A fight with interim WBC champion Ajit Cabale would be very exciting, but stylistically dangerous. Cabale brings volume, aggression, pressure, and pace, a serious risk. Fans would love it, but for Itauma's team, it might be too dangerous at this stage. Filip Hrgovic was also recently in the mix, but he was unexpectedly matched with Dave Allen instead. Meanwhile, Joseph Parker remains a strong option, maybe not the most dangerous, but very valuable in terms of name recognition. Plus, after his loss to Wardley, Parker isn't really in a position to be too selective. Another notable option is Martin Bacol. After a series of underwhelming performances and a long layoff, his market value has dropped, but as a name for promotion, he's still quite useful. Overall, after the fight, even bigger statements about Itauma's level started appearing. Even before the bout, George Groves said that Itauma doesn't need additional tests and is already ready to fight and beat top contenders. He even suggested that in a fight against Tyson Fury, he would favor Moses. According to Groves, Itauma's freshness and sharpness could pose serious problems for Fury, he might even hurt or stop him. Bold claims, but after such a knockout, these conversations will only grow louder. Teddy Atlas also has no doubts about Itauma's future. He says there is always a knockout possibility with him because punchers are born, not made, and Moses is exactly that kind of fighter. According to Atlas, he can knock anyone out within 1 or 2 rounds. He has everything: technique, inside and outside game, footwork, and talent. Becoming a world champion is just a matter of time. Even Daniel Dubois reacted respectfully after the fight, saying Franklin is a skilled fighter, but Itauma stopped him impressively. He noted that Moses found his shots and is an excellent prospect. Fabio Wardley, as mentioned earlier, also highlighted not just his power but his ability to adapt during the fight. At this point, the question is no longer whether Moses is talented, that's no longer up for debate. The real question now is, who should be next? Someone big, logical, and useful for his development: Gassiev, Cabale, Parker, Bacol, or maybe someone less obvious. Write in the comments who you'd like to see as his next opponent, and more importantly, how far you think he can go right now. Because after what happened in Manchester, talk of a title fight by the end of the year no longer sounds like fantasy, it looks like a very real scenario. That's it, friends. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next episode. This was Alexander Petrov.